Thank you for your interest in this Geotech Center video on designing and populating a geodatabase. My name is Wing Cheung, and I'm a professor of geography and GIS at Palomar College. In this video, you'll learn how to create a file geodatabase, create a new feature class, add new fields to the feature class, configure subtypes, configure domains, and also make simple edits in ArcGIS Pro. So to give you a little background, let's say you have been asked by your boss to create a geodatabase to map out and store information on some of San Diego's most iconic museums in Balboa Park. This information will be used to guide tourists and residents around and also tell them something about the museums. So now let's start with part one, creating the geodatabase. In order to do this, you need to start ArcGIS Pro and sign in to your account. Then I'm going to create a new project. I'm going to name my new project Balboa and click OK. As you can see, the new project has been created. And when I look at my catalog tab, here is the Balboa folder that was created as a result of creating that new project. In order to create the new file geodatabase that goes into the Balboa folder, I need to click on the Insert tab here, go to Connections, and select New File Geodatabase. Here, I'm going to create the file geodatabase called Places. And so as you can see here, I have now created my Places file geodatabase. Now I still need to create a new feature class, right, to go into the file geodatabase. To do that, I'll right-click, go to New, and go to Feature Class. And I'm going to name my feature class Museums. And make sure to select Points as my geometry type. And I should see that the coordinate system is WGS 1984 Web Mercator Auxiliary Sphere, and click Run to create my feature class. Let me close this window. And you should see the museum feature class has been created. Now that we have finished creating our feature class within the newly created geodatabase, we're going to need to add in some new fields. To do this, we'll right-click on the museum feature class that we just created, go to Design, and click on Fields. As you can see here, there are some fields like the object ID and shape that were automatically created and managed by ArcGIS Pro. If we click on this line that say click here to add a new field, this will give us the option to create additional fields that we will need for subtyping later. So I'm going to create a field called Category, and this field will be of the short integer type. I'm going to create yet another field called Name, and this will be of the text type, and that will store the name of the museum. And I'm also going to create another field called free to indicate whether the museum has free admissions or not. Once I've created these new fields, I need to hit save to save my changes. Now that we have finished adding new fields to our museum's feature class, we're ready to use one of those fields as our subtype field and start configuring plausible value within the subtypes. It is very important to remember that the field and the only fields that we can use for subtypes are those of the integer data type. So it could either be short integer, like you see here, that we have assigned to the category field, or it could be of the long integer data type. So now if we right click on museums and go to design and go to subtypes, you see we have a new window here where we can specify which of the fields that is in our layer, the museums layer or the museums feature class, we want to use as our subtype field. So as you can see, I want to use my category fields as my subtype field. So right click on that and click on set as subtype field. And now I can specify what are the plausible values to go into this subtypes. So for this category field, I'm going to use this to distinguish between the different types of museums that are in Balboa Park. So I'm going to enter here 0 for science museums, and then hit tab to go to the next line. The value of 1 for art museums, 2 for history museums, and 3 for other types of museums. Also, as you can see here, you can specify which category or which subtype you want to use as your default. So for example, if you know that there are a lot of history museums in Balboa Park, you may want to select history as the default subtype. That way, whenever someone creates a new feature that goes into that museum's feature class, it will by default has the subtype value of history unless they go and change it to something else. So click OK. And once again, make sure you hit save to save your changes. And we have now finished configuring subtypes for our feature class. The next step is to make some simple edits to the empty feature class, that empty museums feature class that we created, to make sure that the subtype specification is working. To test our feature class, right-click on museums, click Add to New Map, and you should now see there's museums added to our table of contents, as well as a base map. And if we go to the Edits tab and go to Create, you can see that the Edit feature template has a different symbology for each of the subtype that we previously specified. To help get us closer to Balboa Park, which is in San Diego, we'll go back to the Maps tab go to Locate. And here on the Locate tab here, we'll type in Balboa Park, San Diego. And you can now see that we have centered in on Balboa Park. If we use our scroll wheel on the mouse to zoom in to where all the museums are, you can also see the name of the museums on the base map. To make our edits, again, click on the Edit tab here. Click on Create. And so to place my first feature, I'm going to click on Science, and making sure that the point icon is selected. I'm going to place a point on the Reuben H. Fleet Science Center. And I'm also going to change its attributes after placing the points by clicking on the Attributes button. And as you can see, given that I just clicked on the Science subtype, right, the attribute of Science is already automatically entered for me for the category field for that point that I just placed. So now I just need to enter its attribute information. So I'm going to call it the Fleet Science Center. And for now, I'm not going to worry about the free field yet, because in the next section, we're going to talk about, I'm going to show you how do we specify domain for this field. So for now, just hit Save to save our edits, and click Yes. And now we have saved our edits. You may want to go back to the Create button and place maybe 3 more points on other museums that you're seeing on your screen. For example, history. I'll place that at here, the Museum of Man. And again, remember to change its attributes. And hit Save. So you may want to place some more points on your map, or move on to the next section. Now that we have finished making our edits and saving our edits, we can close the Attributes window, also close the Locate tab and the Create Features tab. And you can see once again your Catalog tab on the side here. Keep in mind that I have not entered any information for the free field just yet, because in this section we're going to look at how do we configure domains in order to limit the types of values that we can enter into that free field. So it's important to remember that unlike subtypes, domains is a setting that you set at the Geodatabase level. So to do that, we'll right-click on the Places Geodatabase from the Catalogs tab, and you'll see Domains here. So we'll click on that. And this is where you can name your domain. So I'm going to call my domain Admissions. And the description is the museum free to visit. And the field type, I'm going to leave as a text. And the domain type is going to be a coded value domain. And here, I have to specify what are those coded values. So I'm going to specify y as yes and n as no. Again, very importantly, make sure you hit save before proceeding. If for some reason the save button just grayed out at this step, it means that you have some unsaved edits in your map. So it's a good time to go back to the Maps tab and save your edits before proceeding. But anyway, so here, click Save. And now if we go back to the Balboa Geodatabase in the Catalogs tab, the Places Geodatabase, excuse me, and right-click and go to Design and go to Subtypes, you'll see that we have this field called Free that we previously created. And this is where we can specify, right, to apply this admissions domain that we created at the database level to each of these subtypes of museum that we previously specified. Again, hit Save. Now, just to make sure that I don't have any kind of permission error or data layer that's being locked, I'm going to go ahead and close out of the map that I was previously working on, as well as these other windows that I no longer need since I have finished specifying my domains and subtypes. In the Catalog tab, I'll right-click on Museums, add it to my map again, and to make sure and to test that my domain and subtypes are still working, I'll create yet another feature. I'll go to the Edit tab, click Create, click on Art, make sure again that the point is selected. Click here on where it says San Diego Museum of Art, click on Attributes, and enter his name. And now, since I specified and applied the domain, you can see I have a choice between yes and no as values for the free field. And hit Save and click Yes. If you wish to make edits to points that you have previously placed, again on the Edits tab, select the Select icon and select, for example, the Reuben H. Fleet Science Center point that we previously placed. And you can see in the Attributes area, the free field still has this null value since we did not enter a value previously. But now, since we have applied the domain, we can say that we can choose one of the values that are in the domain. And here's no. And we can do the same for the Museum of Man or any other points that you have previously placed. And again, update is a value for the free field. And this concludes our video on designing and populating a geodatabase. To learn more, you can find other resources on the Geotech Center website, including model courses. And my name is Wayne Cheung, and here's my contact information. And I thank you for joining me for this video.